Okay.
All right. So I don't know if you want to introduce it,
I'll
Scott.
do the intro and
Yeah,
then
you do the intro.
you on. Okay.
Uh,
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the weekly UK Sangha. Anyone's welcome to join. Here we have some of our good friends here with us. And before I started the call, DJ was talking about hindrances arising at work. And so I think we're about to learn some good Dhamma from that. So please go ahead, DJ, with what you were saying.
oh yeah. So it was pretty cool because, just continuing the practice. And lately I've been well, starting out focusing like on the fundamentals, right? Just coming back to the breath, gladdening the mind, and really working that in. But what's cool is as you do that, the more like you could say not necessarily advanced, but like Paticca Samuppada, you can start to see it a little bit more clearly as well, which is really cool when the mind is in a wholesome state. So like even if like a hindrance arose, right, you can see it in a very like not personal way. You can see, okay, it arises, but then you can start to see like as it sort of traces back, like, oh, well, this came up, right? And you can see how, like, okay, for example, the fear of death can come up from like the most mundane like little things sometimes, and you just see it like come up like just this little bit of fear, but you can kind of like trace it back, and then you can see like all the way to like the habit patterns and stuff as well, right? But it's like the little you just get into the this is kind of bouncing around, but again the links all kind of roll together, like they're all dependently arising, right? But anywho, the feelings, like when you tone into the feelings, you can see how the feeling kind of would pull off a little bit and how the mind would kind of like wander, and you could see, oh, okay, this is where this is like getting into the fear of like death and all that stuff, right? But then there's like some attachment there, you see the attachment, but I mean you're even like not again at this, you're in a gladdened state, you're not identified with like any of it when it arises, right? You're just kind of seeing it as it is. You can kind of like, it's very quick, and so, yeah, it just sort of traces back. But another point that's really cool is like, because when I talked to Dhammarato before, we talked about sankharas, right? And like the mental formations, but really getting into those and how those are like kind of like, the memory system, the habitual patterns, the conditionings, the programmings of the mind, right? You can see how it's like, oh, okay, there's that kind of like condition that was placed there. And again, these conditions can get in the way of your serenity, your peace, or whatever, right? You're placing these conditions in front of your happiness, right? So in a way, again, as you're doing this, you're unconditioning, yourself from a conditional kind of happiness. You're like, okay, I can see that. And the thing is, because it's like known, so it's known, you see it, you're like, there's just no point in doing that, right? You can see like just how it all lines up and just come back to like, okay, this breath is good enough right now, and holy baloney, is it ever good? Just to lay down all these burdens. But what's cool too is, so when you're at work or something, it's like balancing it as well, right? So in terms of what is it? Which can be very dynamic in terms of practice as well, but not getting absorbed by anything, right? Like not getting like, okay, you're using this as a tool as you come back, but like not to get like super absorbed into like some kind of deep like sort of state or whatever, but just sort of like, oh, you're just paying attention to what's going on. Oh, I can enjoy the cleaning, I can
Yeah.
enjoy,
So,
helping customers and all
all
that
right.
stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
that's the
cool.
talking point. I can jump in right there. Um, so when you said deep state,
Yeah.
so this is a common misconception of jhana practice.
Yes.
Jhana is not deep, okay? Dukkha is deep.
Mm.
Sloth and torpor is deep. Jhana is actually an experience of clarity and awakeness and uh, bright lucidity. So anything that requires um, it requires like a sort of lucidity of mind to do, you can do in first jhana. And the jhanas that come after that aren't deep either. So
Yes.
just they're just lightening up from the mental activity. So it's not as if you go into a deep samadhi or something, or a deep state of absorption, and you're deeply, it's like you're in a coma or something.
Yeah.
That's not what jhana is like. Jhana is like lightening up so much that your experience begins to lose the barriers that were creating disturbances in your mind. So, as a byproduct of that, your mind gathers together and sort of enjoys the unfoldment of what happens when we don't become obsessed with any one of the hindrances. When we're not obsessed with sensual desire, when the mind is not obsessed with craving or aversion, when it's not obsessed with ill will, so it's not obsessed with anyone else, it's not obsessed with the past or the future, we actually experience a sense of relief and clarity uh, as a result of that. And that relief and clarity is not deep, it's light. It's the opposite of deep. One of the calls I had with Dhammarato when I started getting into jhana, and so I was really interested in jhana because it was kind of a new thing for me. Um, it's the video is titled "Meditation is Not Deep,"
Yeah.
because I said, oh, because I got deep in meditation or something, and he's like, hey, he stopped me there. And then he went on a whole rant about how meditation is not deep and how he
Yeah.
doesn't know how this idea ever got into the West, stuff like that. So the point is, we can play around with the words, and we can use more accurate words. It's not that like I don't know what you mean when you say deep jhana, but
Yeah. Well,
it
well,
might
that
it
it,
might give a misunderstanding to someone who hasn't experienced it. Go
yeah,
ahead.
no, I was saying that's an excellent pointer, like everything you said there, because that's kind of what I was hinting at. Because the point is not to get into some sort of like super deep state where you are absorbed by something. Because again, that's like fixation and can be a form of attachment, right?
Right.
This is bouncy, this is light, this is something that you can, just abide in a way, apply and sustain, return to, and it's very practical in a sense if
Yeah.
you can do that. And again, you being content with the first jhana and being like, okay, this is good enough, right? And again, because the other ones, you can kind of not drop, okay, but you know what I mean, in a sense. Well, in terms of dropping off some of the what is it, like the verbal talk and all that stuff, but it can just be for a little bit. What's really cool about that is when you drop off the verbal talk and you just go into like the pure feelings, it gives you like an understanding of it. However, like of what that feels like. But however, it's not like, okay, we need to now be in this state for like 30 minutes. Because as soon as you start doing that, you lose you kind of like lose it when it becomes like a hard and a fast and there's craving involved, right? Like if you were to do that and then you just do it, okay, no problem. But the problem is when there's that continual craving and lusting after that. But this can actually be a wonderful tool for investigation. You see and feel that, and then as the words come back up, or paying attention to like just what's going on, you can still have that feeling, right? You can still kind of have, and it's very again, just very satisfactory and very useful, because it helps you to actually, in a weird way, it drops away the worry of, okay, by practicing this, I am somehow not going to be less efficient at what I'm doing. Now, the productivity or that kind of aspect is more of a byproduct, right? Because the primary thing, like the thing is, what benefits I find, at least with this, is again to have the compass of dukkha, dukkha, nirodha. As soon as it starts becoming about other things in the conditioned world, then it's gonna, like, again, it helps to kind of use that like to go all the way, because things in the world are fun. They're cool. You can appreciate them as a rise. You don't have to be a complete and total like drag or anything. You can have that joy. And that's again what Dhammarato is so good at like showing, you
Uh,
know. But the thing is like understand, return again and again to the recollection and understanding that everything fades away and nothing in this world is worth clinging to.
so exactly.
Yeah.
So beautifully said, DJ. Um, so these kinds of states can be very fantastic, very enticing, very um, they can be very enjoyable, and you can start to cling to them too. And you can, it's not worth clinging to, so it's not worth it. Like all jhana is impermanent, and jhana can be like um, just like anything else. If you cling on to it, and then it's not there anymore, now you're
Mhm.
in dukkha. So even if you experienced jhana in the past, your conceptualization of what jhana is not jhana. So your remembering of being in jhana is a fabrication that you're creating now. So it's kind of like if you retell a story. Each time
Mhm.
you tell a story, the story changes a little bit. And it actually mentions this directly in the sutta. And it's funny, DJ came guns blazing talking about jhana. That's the exact sutta that I was going to read today. Um, I was going to read one by one as they occurred, the Jhana Sutta. But before I get into that, does anyone else have anything they would like to say or questions they want to ask before we get into the reading? Nick, any thoughts? First jhana?
I had one, but never mind. It's going now.
Okay. Okay, fair enough. That's good. I'm just throwing it out there just to see if anyone wants to keep the ball rolling here. But I think it's good to get into the actual text for what these things are talking about. So this is the Majjhima Nikaya 111, Anupadasutta, one by one as they occurred. So this was a teaching given by Sariputta, and he goes through all of the jhanas. And jhanas can get very esoteric and seem kind of like magical, but they're really not. Um, this one goes through all eight, so uh, I think it's a really interesting read. To be honest, my understanding of the Dhamma is that only the first four you really need. But we can talk about the formless jhanas as well. And I'll be very honest with which ones I've experienced and the ability to experience them, because I think it's good to have an open dialogue about these kinds of states instead of having it all be obscure and like hidden away somewhere, or only some people on Reddit or something talking about them that actually don't know what they're talking about. So here we go. Thus have I heard on one occasion the Blessed One was living at Savatthi in Jeta's Grove, Anathapindika's park. He addressed the bhikkhus thus, Bhikkhus, Venerable Sir, they replied, the Blessed One said this, Bhikkhus, Sariputta is wise. Sariputta has great wisdom. Sariputta has wide wisdom. Sariputta has uh, has quick wisdom. Sariputta has keen wisdom. Sariputta has penetrative wisdom. During half a month, bhikkhus, Sariputta had insight into states one by one as they occurred. Now Sariputta's insight into states one by one as they occurred was this. Here bhikkhus, quite secluded from sensual pleasures, secluded from unwholesome states, Sariputta entered upon and abided in the first jhana, which is accompanied by applied and sustained thought, with rapture and pleasure born of seclusion. All right, so that's first jhana. This is repeated a lot in the suttas. And Nick, I muted you just because there's some background noise, but if you want to say something, just go ahead and unmute yourself when you have something to say. Let's take some of the very important key words here. Quite secluded from sensual pleasures, secluded from unwholesome states, entered upon and abided in the first jhana, which is accompanied by applied and sustained thought. Okay, so seclusion. There is physical seclusion, but then there is also mental seclusion. Are there other people living rent-free in your mind right now? That would be the opposite of seclusion. So all of these things, these company that we allow into our house causes a disturbance, and it's kind of like throwing a party that you didn't want to have, and everyone's knocking stuff over and causing problems in your own mind. So this is what happens when the mind wanders off into obsessive territory, when we think about the past and the future, and when we think about things that are not necessary to think about, aka mental proliferation. So there's thinking that is useful, there's thinking that is practical, and there's thinking that is wholesome. And then all the rest of the thinking, it just causes problems. And developing the skill of jhana is just learning how to discern the two and becoming better at getting rid of those thoughts that are unnecessary and unwholesome, so that we can appreciate and abide in the fruit of first jhana. And the states in the first jhana, the applied thought, the sustained thought, the rapture, the pleasure, and the unification of mind, the contact, feeling, perception, volition, and mind, the zeal, decision, energy, mindfulness, equanimity, and attention. These states were defined by him one by one as they occurred. Known to him, these states arose. Known, they were present. Known, they disappeared. He understood thus. So indeed, these states, not having been, come into being. Having been, they vanish. Regarding those states, he abided unattracted, unrepelled, independent, detached, free, dissociated. With a mind rid of barriers, he understood there is an escape beyond, and with the cultivation of that attainment, he confirmed that there is. All right, so there's actually a lot of different things that come into play with first jhana. So there's a lot of different factors and aspects that come together to produce the experience of first jhana. But as it mentions here, first jhana is not the end goal. It's an aspect of correct practice. It comes from being satisfied and practicing good, but it's not something to attach yourself to. And also another aspect of first jhana is it comes with a lot of zeal. So I really like the word zeal. Zeal just means you could say it means enthusiasm, interest, energizing joy. Rapture would be joy. A lot of Christians are, they're still waiting for the rapture. When will it come? Here it is. So rapture is an aspect of practicing the teachings of the Buddha. And rapture is to be found here and now. So that's the good news. Okay, you don't have to wait for Jesus to save you. You don't have to wait for anyone to come and do it for you. You can do it yourself.
You can score the touchdown right now.
Exactly, scoring the cosmic touchdown. And then another thing I want to highlight here. He understood thus, so indeed, these states not having been come into being, having been, they vanish. Okay, so this is talking about insight. It's not separating it explicitly here in the scripture. It does not separate jhana and vipassana or insight. It's talking about it happening at the same time. So while this state of jhana arises, there is the contemplation of anicca in that entire experience. So there's the contemplation of things arising and passing away. In fact, I would go as far to say as if you're not in first jhana, you can't do vipassana, and it won't work. So these things go hand in hand. They're not separate. And this is back to the original suttas of what the Buddha actually taught. And let me tell you, I knew about jhana and I tried to practice vipassana. I tried to practice jhana before I came upon the teachings of Dhammarato and the original suttas and stuff. And everything I had learned had either come from like Mahayana or the commentaries or stuff, and none of it worked. All of it was just mental proliferation. So I can tell from direct experience, this is how it works. So you rid the mind of the hindrances. You practice correctly. You apply and sustain that wholesome until everything is wholesome. And then there's going to be the experience of joy that arises, and the experience of sukha, and the experience of energy. So this sort of relief that comes with a sense of rapture. And when that relief comes with a sense of rapture, you don't make a big deal out of it. You see it for what it is. Oh, these are sensations and phenomena just arising and passing away. And you are just even more equanimous to it, even more, okay, it's cool, first jhana, whatever, been there, done that. He abided unattracted, unrepelled, independent, detached, free, dissociated. So these are all hints how to stay in it and how to continue on to other jhanas as well. So to make jhana, yeah, go. Do you have a question? Go for it. I think you're on mute, Aaron. Your mic's not on. I think if your earphones are plugged in, you have to change the audio to the earphones or something like that in the settings. Or you have to take them out to like speak into it. Maybe just unplug your earphones. That's a beautiful view. I still can't hear you though. All right, so while Aaron figures out his mic situation, I'm just gonna continue. But Aaron, please, as soon as you figure it out, feel free to interrupt and ask your question. Here we go. And again, there's an escape beyond. So I asked Dhammarato about this because Dhammarato usually teaches first jhana is enough, first jhana is satisfying. But here at the end of first jhana paragraph, it explicitly says he understood there's an escape beyond, and with the cultivation of that attainment, he confirmed that there is. So I asked Dhammarato, what does this mean? And he said it's like seeing the light at the end of the tunnel. So you keep walking towards the light. The light is the same. So first jhana would be the light, and you see it far away in the distance, and you realize, oh, I'm going to keep moving towards that because it's wholesome and good. So there's an escape beyond you keep continuing, you continue towards it. So that's kind of a poetic way to understand that. Again, bhikkhus, with the stilling of applied and sustained thought, Sariputta entered and abided in the second jhana, which has self-confidence and singleness of mind without applied and sustained thought, with rapture and pleasure born of unification. Okay, so second jhana. Essentially, the applied and sustained wholesome thought stills down, and there continues on the wholesome feelings. So an analogy that you can think of this is like getting a car rolling from a standstill. Let's say your battery died and you drive a manual. At first, it takes the applied and sustained pushing of that car to get it rolling. But once it starts rolling, you're like, oh, okay, I know the car has enough momentum, it's rolling enough that I can stop the applied and sustained push, thinking the wholesome thoughts, and then I can just hop in the front seat and ride it out. That would be second jhana, and it comes with a lot of self-confidence of, oh yeah, I really got this thing. This is working. So whatever I've been doing, all this meditation or whatever, all this YouTube videos I've been watching, all this stuff I've been reading, finally now this is it. It's doing something. The meditation is working. Fruit. I'm tasting the fruit of all this stuff. So there's that confidence that comes with it, and with that confidence, it just increases the vibes, so to speak, even more. Another pointer I like to use for second jhana that I think might be a little bit more relatable, that it's not something weird or esoteric. This is something that everyone's experienced at one point for however little, is when you're listening to a song you really enjoy. A really good song, and there's a part where a lyric really strikes a chord with you, and you hear that lyric, and then the instruments play, and for a moment there your mind goes blank, and all you experience is a flood of goosebumps and tingles and pleasure and joy, and your mind is just totally enamored with the music, and something about the lyrics just really struck a chord, and you stop thinking for a moment there, and you just experience the joy and relief of that song, the beat drop or whatever it is. That would be second jhana.
I got a few songs where I just play them and I'm like, all right, second jhana, here we come. And I'm like ready for it. And then I just ride that thing right into it.
Yeah, so so the example here the lyrics would be the applied and sustained thought. So you're staying with the music. So you're listening to the song, you're not distracting yourself. You're applying and sustaining the attention on the lyrics, and hopefully the lyrics are wholesome for the purposes of jhana. I mean, if you're listening to emo music, you're going to be not going into jhana for sure. Okay, you're going to be throwing a pity party. But let's say you're listening to a wholesome, upbeat song. You're following the lyrics. You don't let the mind wander anywhere else. The feelings start to develop. The wholesome feelings start to rise. And then at a certain point, everything just breaks through. And wow, this is amazing. This is such a rush. But you can actually do this, develop the skill to do this without the music. I'm just saying this is sort of like a pointer to what it's kind of like to experience these states.
Oh, can I pop in for a moment there?
Yes.
Just in terms of the music thing, yeah, I think it's helpful actually to do a bit of like both. Like, so going into like seclusion where you sit down and you don't really have any like active sort of sense pleasures to know, hey, you know what, I can get into this state without any, like, with very minimal, right? But then also, so you don't get even attached to the seclusion, sometimes it's nice to just listen to a song and have the wholesome lyrics come in. And what's cool is if you go into seclusion, the lyrics can come up almost like a mantra singing in one's mind, and
Yeah.
then the gaps come, and then you just experience the feeling like you said, and it's
Yeah.
beautiful. But yeah,
Very good point. Yeah, so even something that is said during a Sangha call, something Dhammarato said to you, something that sparks joy, you may recall it. It may come back into your mind when you're just going about your business during your day. And this recalling, this remembering of something wholesome is really sati. So that's the aspect of remembering the Dhamma. Even if you're recalling something that was said, something that made sense to you, something that resonated, and it sparks that wholesome feeling. It brings you back. You remember, even after the call is over, even after you go about your business and you forget the Dhamma. So the Dhamma, when practiced correctly, comes back like a bad habit, and it keeps coming back, and it keeps coming back, and it kind of infects your mind. So that's an aspect of stream entry, is you find great joy in the Dhamma. It becomes like one of the only things you really care about. So you come back to it again and again in your mind, and the results speak for themselves, and the results just keep going. And then if let's say you're kind of fed up with the Dhamma, you don't want to think about it, well, then you can not think about it for a while. That's fine too. If it doesn't inspire joy, if it doesn't create serenity, if it doesn't bring relief, that wasn't the Dhamma anyways. That was mental proliferation. So you can kind of rule that out if you think the practice isn't working or something like that. Just give it a break, give it a rest.
Even stopping the Dhamma is the Dhamma.
Even what?
Stopping the Dhamma is the Dhamma.
Yeah.
Stop thinking. That's like closer to second jhana.
Yeah. So again, remember the mission: dukkha dukkha nirodha. So we're not trying to confuse ourselves or add more rules or add more burdens to our minds, or create some kind of rules that we're supposed to be following, that when we inevitably fail at those rules, we punish ourselves even more. So punishing yourself for, oh, you were thinking about the past, or you got mad at somebody, you punish yourself even more. That's just missing the point. So remember not to punish yourself and not to make rules for yourself, and to take it as it comes and take it easy. And the more you take it easy on yourself, and the more freedom you give yourself to fuck up, the less you will fuck up. So the less you're going to care, and the more detached you're going to be, and the more wholesome feelings you're going to experience, and then wisdom arises as a byproduct of that. So don't be strict and harsh on yourself. Be forgiving. Be forgiving to yourself as you should be forgiving to other people too. Be patient and forgiving to yourself just as much as you are to other people. And I think you should train both aspects. So internal forgiveness and external forgiveness, because they go hand in hand. And if you are resenting yourself, chances are it's going to manifest externally and start resenting other people. Like you can see this in parent-children relationships all the time. Some aspect of the parent that they really don't like about themselves shows in the child, and so they bring the hammer down hard on them because they hate that about themselves, and they see the same thing in their child. So this is the same logic with that forgiveness. Okay, so
You could even drop the boundary between forgiveness of others and yourself, and just forgiveness. You can make that just the new way of working.
Yeah, exactly. So
Yeah.
again, the simple the better. So the more simple you can understand things, the more simple you can apply and sustain the practice, the better. Things do not need to be more complicated than they need to be. I often think about a wholesome thought that gladdens my mind. I often think about how a guy who is kind of stupid came to the Buddha, and so the Buddha gave him a rock and a cloth, and he and he said, "Here, polish this rock, and practice thus. As I polish this rock, I purify my mind." So he polished that rock. He polished that rock to his own enlightenment, as the stories tell. So sometimes you got to stop thinking about jhanas. You got to stop thinking about dependent origination and just polish your rock in your mind. Okay, just breathe. Okay, simple, better. Satisfaction. Okay, everything's okay. Everything's fine. Whatever it takes to get yourself satisfied and secluded from unwholesome states. Okay. All right, so continuing on with second jhana. And these states in the second jhana, the self-confidence, the rapture, the pleasure, and the unification of mind, the contact, feeling, perception, volition, and mind, the zeal, decision, energy, mindfulness, equanimity, and attention. These states were defined by him one by one as they occurred. Known to him, these states arose. Known they were present. Known they disappeared. He understood thus. There's escape beyond ellipses. And with the cultivation of that attainment, he confirmed that there is. Okay, so there's a lot of things that's adding in here that's involved with the clarity of your mind. So when you are actually in jhana, and then there is a clarity of mind, the mind is fit for work, so to speak. So you can actually see all the little mental impressions, and little selfings that arise in your visceral experience with greater detail and clarity. So your perception, so you can see the mind interpreting the experience of jhana. Volition, so you can see the intentions. So there's intentions arising every moment. Before I raise my hand, there's the intention to raise my hand. So raising my hand is one thing, but that intention to do it is a different thing. That is a mental formation that you can become more acutely aware of. And same with the attention. So where's the attention placed? What is the attention on? And if you're in second jhana, the attention would be on the pleasure and rapture, and also all of this other stuff I'm talking about, one by one as they occur. So the idea is things happen one by one. But when we are out of jhana, or when we are unmindful, a lot of things are happening and we didn't notice them one by one because we weren't paying attention. So when the mind is clear, you notice states and intentions, volition, energy, equanimity, rapture, the pleasure, the unification of mind, all of these things happening one by one as they occur. Known to him, they arose, and then known, they vanished. So all of these things are arising and passing away. So jhana flowers as an experience, and then it wilts away and it dies just like everything else. So it blooms and then it subsides. And there's no attachment to that whole process. It's just kind of like, oh, cool, look at that, look at it go. And that's how you kind of stay in a wholesome state and stabilize it. Again, because with the fading away as well of rapture, Sariputta abided in equanimity and mindful, fully aware, still feeling pleasure with the body. He entered upon and abided in third jhana, on account of which noble ones announce he has a pleasant abiding who has equanimity and is mindful. All right, so when you enter third jhana, there will be an announcement. Someone will walk through the door and say he has a pleasant abiding. No, but yeah, so there is the knowledge that you're distinctly in a different state of mind. So with each subsequent jhana, there is the knowledge that this is third jhana, or this is second jhana, or this is first jhana, and this is kind of a maturation of the practice. Whereas in the beginning, you're just wanting to be thinking about, am I in a wholesome state or not? And that's the most important thing, is getting in a wholesome state. So that's what you practice. Once you are in a wholesome state, and you can kind of stay in a wholesome state, and you can return to a wholesome state, well, you can look around and see what's going on now. How do these wholesome states operate? And what are the different aspects of the wholesome states? So what are the qualities? And like, if I focus on the comfort of body and I sort of calm down all the uplifted joy that got me into first jhana, that becomes tiring at a certain point too. So even if you are experiencing a lot of joy, you get really giddy, get really happy at a certain point. Okay, like I just want to relax more now. So you kind of let that fall away, and you bring the attention more to the tranquility of your body, the sukha, the comfort. So sukha is like what it feels like to just be totally relaxed. So there's no tension in your body at all. There's just complete relaxation and repose and stillness. If you sink into a hot tub and you get in the hot tub and you go, ah, and you sort of let go any tension that you're holding in your body, that is sukha. And you can practice consciously relaxing tensions in the body as they arise. So I think in order to practice jhana, in order to become skilled in jhana, you have to be relaxing the tensions that arise in the mind as well as the body. So the mind starts to become obsessed with something. It starts to get hung up on something. You have to let that go and replace it with something wholesome, or just stop thinking about that. So that is the mental tensions. And they go hand in hand with the bodily tensions. So you realize you're a little bit jittery, maybe you should walk. Or there's some tension in your back. Oh, let me stretch it out. Let me roll out. It's not, you don't have to sit down and be determined not to move and just suffer more and more mentally and physically. That's missing the entire point of jhana. So jhana is about getting yourself into a unified, a comfortable, a satisfying, and a wholesome state of mind. So do what you need to do. If you need to stretch out your legs, if you need to roll your neck around, if you need to walk, if there's too much restlessness, sometimes better to do walking meditation. There's no reason you can't enter jhana while walking. Also, it's good for your health. I think people should walk more in general. Walking is just good. And if there's no questions, I'll keep going. And the states in the third jhana, the equanimity, the pleasure, the mindfulness, the full awareness, and the unification of mind, the contact, feeling, perception, volition, and mind, the zeal, decision, energy, mindfulness, equanimity, and attention. These states were defined by him one by one as they occurred. Known to him, those states arose. Known they were present. Known they disappeared. He understood thus, there is an escape beyond this, and with the cultivation of that attainment, he confirmed that there is. Oh, and Aaron, if your mic wasn't working and you want to ask your question, you can type it in the chat and I can respond to it there. So it's up to you. If you type a question in the chat, I could respond to it as well. Again, bhikkhus, with the abandoning of pleasure and pain, and with the previous disappearance of joy and grief, Sariputta entered upon and abided in the fourth jhana, which has neither pleasure nor pain, and purity of mindfulness due to equanimity. Okay, so this is equanimity. So equanimity happens through the subsiding of all the pleasure and all the sukha. So that becomes not interesting anymore, and you just become content, just absolutely content to the point that there's no feelings anymore. There's no pain or pleasure. And so there is a sublime clarity to that experience. Equanimity is just the absolute state of mind that is completely undisturbed, unagitated by anything, even pleasure. So, but there's no pain. So it's not the same as apathy or boredom. A lot of people mistake equanimity to be a state of boredom or a state of dullness, which it's the opposite of that. It's neither of those things. So if you're experiencing any sensation that is unpleasant, you're not in jhana, you're not in fourth jhana. There's a kind of very enjoyable sort of objectivity to it. So there's like the bias of liking and disliking is gone there. So we don't have anymore any biases of wanting this or not wanting that in fourth jhana. There's just complete clarity of mind and unification. And that would be true equanimity. And when you are in equanimity, the things I was talking about earlier, like seeing the formations of our mind and the processes of selfing, you can see that with a profound amount of clarity. So you can really see, oh, this little thing that's developing and has intention and feels like a located entity, a separate real being that continues moment for moment. Oh, that's actually a impermanent thing that's arising and passing away. It's a little wispy sensation that now that I don't have any craving or aversion in the way, I can see that's clearly just a phenomena, just like anything else that's appearing and disappearing. So it's not me. The process of my mind is just a natural process, just as the wind blowing through the leaves or the clouds passing through the sky. So there's a sublime gazing at the totality of our experience without any personal identification with it. A lot of other practices sort of point towards this state and try to, and this is kind of like the ultimate state for them in a way. Dzogchen kind of talks about, they try to point to fourth jhana a lot in like Dzogchen type of practices, and some tantric practices as well. And then some tantric practices or some mystical practices are oftentimes talking about the formless jhanas. So I'll get into the formless jhanas. But a lot of, even some of the formless jhanas are taken to be the ultimate awakening for some traditions. So for a lot of non-dual traditions, such as they go back all the way to Hindu times, they've managed to enter into formless jhanas, so states of becoming one with everything. And things to that extent, these are states of mind that arise and pass away. But then they'll experience that state of mind, they'll become attached to it, and then they'll create a religion out of it. And a lot of religions are created by some guy's mystical experience or something like that. So they're just remembering something instead of living it, instead of knowing what's really going on here, seeing things as they really are. And they create a dogma or a religion out of something they experienced. But here in the Dhamma, we just see things, oh yeah, that's just a jhana. That's just one of the jhanas. And they're done that, not worth clinging to. Again, bhikkhus, with the complete surmounting of perceptions of form. Okay, let me see if I left off at the, oh yeah. Okay, again, bhikkhus, with the complete surmounting of the perceptions of form, with the disappearance of perceptions of sensory impact, with non-attention to perceptions of diversity, aware that space is boundless, Sariputta entered upon and abided in the base of boundless space. In the text it says infinite, but infinite I don't think is a good translation, so I replaced it with boundless. So this is a boundary dissolving experience. So I'm sure people who get into psychedelics a lot or stuff like that may have stumbled into boundary dissolving experiences. But the point is, when you cross the thresholds into boundless jhana, the here and there spatial mechanisms start to dissolve. So that this is me and that is not me. The I'm located here and that stuff is over there. You start to just perceive it all as mind. So a lot of scientists will say our experience of reality is 100% a mental experience. So the experience of that chair over there is not the chair over there. It is just, it's all a fabrication of mind. The entire experience of the three-dimensional room and the sitting over here. So you can have a dream where the whole world is within mind, and the mind dreams up the world as well as the person in it and perceives it from the point of view of that person it dreamed up. But the world itself, the distance, the locations, the space, it's all a product of the mind's creation. So these sorts of illusions of separation can dissolve in these states of mind. But that's not the ultimate enlightenment. The point here is just the end of suffering. So dukkha, dukkha, nirodha. But these are states that can happen, especially if, I don't know, you may stumble in it through a psychedelic experience or something like that, or maybe you're practicing Dzogchen and you had some kind of breakthrough experience, or you were just contemplating non-duality and you were listening to a lot of non-dual stuff and maybe you had this experience. But these experiences happen to people all the time and it's totally possible. But again, I'm going to reread that part, which is pretty important. Again, bhikkhus, with the complete surmounting of perceptions of form, with the disappearance of perception of sensory impact, with non-attention to perceptions of diversity. So non-attention to perceptions of diversity, that's very interesting. So you're stopping diversifying your experience. So you're stopping labeling, giving name and form to things. This is this and that is that. You're kind of just sitting back and gazing at the totality of it without drawing boundaries or making differentiations within your experience. You're not saying, oh, this is where my skin ends and where the chair begins. There's just sort of the formless and nebulous experience of sensations arising and passing away, as well as all of the other sense bases. So even the vision of the room, the tactile sensations, the sounds, the smells and the odors, these are all like, these don't have the location that you think they have. So the mind experiences these sensations and then does an extra calculation or extra interpretation of these sensations and assigns a location to them. They say, oh, this sound is coming from over there, but really sound is just arising. Or this, that wall over there is over there, but really that wall over there is here. It's here in the mind. So that's the idea here. The boundaries are beginning to dissolve when you're in this really objective state. So where you're not clinging on to anything in your experience, or you're not averse to anything. So even the pleasure and the rapture, you're not amazed by it anymore. Here, let me check the chat. Does it sound like he's describing the first 5? So the 5 aggregates are just like the composition of our experience and where dukkha can arise. But I don't think thinking about the 5 aggregates is necessary for when you're thinking about jhana. It's just more necessary to look at what is arising here and now in your experience one by one as they occur. So chances are, the reason why I say that, chances are, is because you're like, which aggregate does this fall under? You're not paying attention to the actual sensation or the actual experience. But your experience is only comprised of so many senses. So there's all these senses and the mind objects. So if you're paying attention to the immediate experience, and is it wholesome? So if it's not wholesome, the only thing here to do is get that thing wholesome. Get back on the wholesome train of applied and sustained thought. Get yourself back into a wholesome state until, well, I'm really riding the train. I bought my ticket, and now I can investigate and take a look here and play around with different levels and scales of the practice. And again, these things are nothing to crave to. I do not claim to be able to enter formless jhanas at will. I have developed the ability to navigate the first 4 jhanas, and I have experienced some formless jhanas, but again, first jhana is enough. So these are toys to play with. And some people never experience boundless jhanas, but they're there. And if you do experience them, it's good to know that it's a thing, so you don't become attached to that too. And you say, okay, this is just another experience. And the states in the base of boundless space, the perceptions of the base of boundless space, and the unification of mind, the contact, feeling, perception, volition, and mind, the zeal, decision, energy, mindfulness, equanimity, and attention. These states were defined by him one by one as they occurred. Known to him, these states arose. Known they were present. Known they disappeared. He understood thus. And with the cultivation of that attainment, he confirmed that there is an escape beyond this. It just skips that part. Again, bhikkhus, by completely surmounting the base of boundless space, aware that consciousness is boundless, Sariputta entered upon and abide in. And all right, see you, Nick. Good to have you, man. Take care, buddy. Cheers. All right. All right. So after that is boundless consciousness. And I had an experience a long time ago. Again, my recalling of the experience isn't the experience itself, but at the time I was practicing Advaita, so a non-dual tradition, and one of the main pointers is about the nature of consciousness being boundless, or consciousness not having any boundaries. So the experience of awareness, or the experience of I am, it's not in anything. It's not in a body. It's not in a thought. It's not in any one of your tactile sensations. It's not in the room. And I had taken an LSD gummy, and I was walking around, and the trip was going really good, and I was in a very wholesome state. So I was already even though I wouldn't conceptualize jhana at that time, I was just in a wholesome state. For whatever reason, the stars aligned. I was in a very wholesome state. The trip was going good. It was a beautiful day, and I was just walking around, and there was a lot of wholesome feelings involved with that. And then I sat down on a park bench, or it was at a bench at the university I was attending at the time, actually. It was a weekend, so nobody was there. But I sat down on the bench, and I just closed my eyes, and I was listening to a Shiva mantra, because I was really into the kind of Hindu aspects of things. And when I looked up what like Shiva actually represents, is like Shiva is actually a symbol for boundless consciousness. And as I was listening to this mantra, my body dissolved like a sugar cube in water, and I experienced consciousness to be boundless. And wow, I thought that was so amazing. And but it's just one of the jhanas here. So like, again, you can stumble into these kinds of experiences, and it's also possible to cultivate them yourselves. But I ended up, after having that experience for a long time, I was in my mind craving for that experience, wanting it again. Oh, what can I do? How can I muster that experience to happen again? And I'm like, wow, that was like a once in a lifetime thing. And like, so I would mentally proliferate about it, and cause myself suffering, even though it was like a really good experience. I can, and even there's some identification with that. So I'd be like, oh, I'm so spiritual. I'm so spiritual now. I had that experience. A lot of people, the first time they'll have something like this, they want to go around telling everybody about it and converting everyone, and they'll have conceit in it and stuff like that. So you can see all kinds of hindrances that can arise. So like the Buddha is saying, this is just that category of things. Don't attach to it. It's just an experience. It arises and passes away. You don't have to have some kind of weird manic episode and tell everyone you're God or something like that, or like go around telling, I knew someone who was convinced he was Jesus Christ for a couple of weeks. He had like, he had an experience or whatever, and he was like absolutely convinced. He's like, I'm Jesus Christ. So I think it's good to keep your wits about you. The path can get strange. I'm sorry, there's some noise. The path can get strange, but and it can get mystical or whatever. But do not become attached to that, and do not be fooled by it. It's just an illusory experience that is arising and passing away. And I'm going to continue, but 1 second, let me go try to see if I can get the noise to stop. And then, do you guys hear that coming through in my camera?
A little bit. It's rather beautiful, really. Just
Okay. Well, I'll be right back, but please feel free to talk among.
I enjoy a little white noise here and there when it arises. But yeah, if anybody felt like bringing anything up or what have you, that's cool. Or not, that's also cool. This is cool. Just chilling. That's it.
All right, guys. Is there any questions before I continue, or things, comments, questions, comments?
I have a quick question. Would you say that going up in the jhanas is like going backwards in the 12 links?
So the jhanas are a process of removal of things, not the gaining of things. So the ignorance is gone, I would say, when you are practicing jhana, but there's different, it's kind of complicated. Like there's different levels of ignorance. So there's like there's ignorance that keeps us from being in first jhana, and then there is like a more subtle ignorance that keeps us from being in second jhana, and a more subtle ignorance. So the jhana is kind of like a process of removing things, not adding things. So first jhana, you remove the hindrances, so you're in a wholesome state. Second jhana, you remove the thinking, so you're just in a more more profoundly relaxed state of just wholesome feelings. And then you remove the joy, so now you're just experiencing comfort, and the joy is the comfort is removed, so equanimity, and the form is removed, so the boundaries are removed, and so on, all the way to nibbana, or extinguishment. So the extinguishment of any craving or the sense of being individual self that's permanent and continuous. There is still, so you can be in first jhana and still be thinking about, or thinking and feeling about how I am independent and continuous self. So again, there's different levels of ignorance, and it just has to do with the process of insight. So the 12 links of dependent origination is the process by which things develop into dukkha, but we're not really concerned with all the links of dependent origination as we are with just getting rid of the dukkha. So throwing out the dukkha, we can experience jhana, and we can just see how the mind works and stuff like that. And then you can go in the reverse order of seeing how dukkha arises after you've thrown it out. And that would be insight into the 12 links of dependent origination. So once dukkha is thrown out, and you keep throwing things out until you have nothing left, and that would be the realization of nibbana, when you just got rid of everything until there's nothing left. So your load is completely lightened to the maximum extent. So there's nothing beyond that. Then when things restart back up again, you can see the dependent origination of things starting back up again, and you can see how dukkha arises. And then after this experience of nibbana, you can say been there, done that to that too. Because I heard Dhammarato talking about Like, yeah, even enlightenment, you can like make something out of it.
Yeah.
And cling on to it. Oh no, been there, done that. Don't need enlightenment anymore. I mean, it was cool. It was cool when it was there, but I got it. Now I can just chill here right now. So that's the point. That's the only point. It's freaking crazy how distracted the mind can get. From the point here is to be satisfied right here, right now, because this is it. You're not satisfaction is never going to come in the future, and if it's in the past, it's gone. So just let it go. Okay. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, thanks.
Okay, cool. Okay, so he gets into boundless consciousness, and then nothingness, and then neither perception nor non-perception. I like that one. So neither perception nor non-perception. So I don't know exactly what that means, but I'm sure maybe Dhammarato will know. I know there's other Buddhist practitioners who will claim to know what that means and will tell you what it means. And I'm sure maybe they have experience that they would categorize as neither perception nor non-perception. But it seems a little bit tricky there to have an experience that is neither perception nor non-perception. But I think that sounds kind of like a koan. Really, to me, it was what it sounds like. So it's like kind of like a paradoxical thing. You can experience things that can't be explained with conventional language. So I think that's what it's trying to point to here with neither perception nor non-perception. So, but even that, it says, is not nibbana. So after neither perception nor non-perception, he emerged from that attainment. Having done so, he contemplated the past states, which had ceased and changed. Thus, so indeed, these states not having been come into being. Having been, they vanish. Regarding those states, he abided unattracted, unrepelled, independent, detached, free, dissociated, with a mind rid of barriers. He understood there is an escape beyond, and with the cultivation of that attainment, he had confirmed that there is. Again, bhikkhus, by completely surmounting the base of neither perception nor non-perception, Sariputta entered upon and abided in the cessation of perception and feeling, and his taints were destroyed by his seeing with wisdom. He emerged mindful from that attainment. Having done so, he recalled the past states, which had ceased and changed. Thus, so indeed, these states not having been come into being, having been, they vanished. Regarding those states, he abided unattracted, unrepelled, independent, detached, free, dissociated, with a mind rid of barriers. He understood there is an escape beyond. Bhikkhus, rightly speaking, were it to be said of anyone, he has attained mastery and perfection in noble virtue, attained mastery and perfection in noble concentration, attained mastery and perfection in noble wisdom, attained mastery and perfection in noble deliverance. It is of Sariputta, indeed, that rightly speaking this should be said. Bhikkhus, rightly speaking, were it to be said of anyone, he is the son of the Blessed One, born of his breast, born of his mouth, born of the Dhamma, created by the Dhamma, an heir to the Dhamma, not an heir in material things. It is of Sariputta, indeed, that rightly speaking this should be said. Bhikkhus, the matchless wheel of the Dhamma set rolling by the Tathagata is kept rolling rightly by Sariputta. This is what the Blessed One said. The bhikkhus were satisfied and delighted in the Blessed One's words. Okay, so this is something that really struck me about the teachings of the Buddha, even in the original doctrine, is that it's not the Buddha, it's not a one-man show here. So one of his students fully became his own Buddha and fully realized the Dhamma to the complete full extent that the Buddha himself has. So it's a come and see for yourself teaching. And I think that's very profound. So this is attainable by anyone who practices the Dhamma correctly to its complete fruition. It's not it's not it's not like another religion where, oh, that guy is special and we're not worthy, okay? And then so we can only hope to like try to be like them. No, you can fully master the full thing for yourself, which is very cool. And again, all the wisdom comes from seeing all these things are impermanent and again not worth clinging to, and that just manifests in more and more sublime states. So the less you cling to the sublime states that happen, the better they get, kind of, or the more nuanced or subtle they get, and you can sort of not be pooped out of it if you don't attach yourselves to these things. Okay, you don't want to scare away the good thing that's come. You don't want to get too clingy. I mean, you can see this in anything, right? You can see it in friendships, you can see it in relationships, you can see it in anything else like that. You cling on to something, you try to grasp onto it as a source for happiness, and it never works. So anything that we grasp onto, anything that we mentally think in our mind, oh, this is going to do it for me, this is going to satisfy me, if I just get this, if I just manage to get this this attainment, or if I just manage to get this promotion, or this car, or this amount of money, or this talent, or this status, or this anything, or this jhana, or this wisdom, or this nibbana, or this end of suffering, then I'll be permanently satisfied. That is the root delusion that causes all this dissatisfaction. So the idea that anything is permanent, or that anything is going to permanently satisfy us, causes us a lot of suffering. So instead of have a easygoing mentality of things come and they go, it doesn't matter much to me, and that lets you be a lot more lighthearted about things, and not take this life so seriously, because this life is so impermanent. We're not here for very long. So what's the point in holding on to it? It'll be gone before you know it. And the whole holding on thing just made it not fun while it was here. So the whole point of the Dhamma is to lighten up and not attach to anything, not think things are different than the way that they are, not think anything is permanent, and have the wisdom and the clarity of mind to be wise to the habits of the mind, and the habits of the mind that are based in ignorance. So not based in reality. It's not actually based on how things are. It's based on your conception or your belief of the way that things are. So that's the end of my spiel. If anyone has anything they'd like to say or comment about, it doesn't have to be a question, or if you have a question, that's cool too. We've been going on for a good amount now. Anyone have anything? Okay, I'll take that as a no. Well, it was good to see all of you guys. Thank you for coming to this Dhamma talk. It's really good to see all your guys' faces. So I encourage you to remember and practice the Dhamma. Try to apply it in your everyday life. Apply it in your relationships. Next time you get mad at somebody, next time something ticks you off, this is all for the sake of getting into a more enjoyable, more wholesome state, no matter the circumstance. So the Dhamma is to be practiced. everywhere, and you'll only good will come of it. It's completely wholesome. Okay, cheers, guys. In the
See ya.